Hey everybody, Jim Gazzale for Past the Wire TV, back on the Oklahoma training track outside Ken Mcpeek's barn here, checking in on Kentucky Derby winner Mystik Dan and Kentucky Oaks winner Torpedo Anna. Both of them got over the Oklahoma training track early this morning. Mystik Dan, as has been reported for the last week since he's been on the scene here in Saratoga, just full of energy. Now, we are still awaiting a decision from trainer Ken Mcpeek about where both of these horses may or may not be pointed for the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival up here next weekend. Obviously, Mystik Dan targeting the Belmont Stakes. Torpedo Anna also perhaps targeting the Belmont Stakes or the Acorn at Grade 1 for fillies on Friday of the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival weekend. Now, Jon Stettin caught up with Kentucky Derby winner and Kentucky Oaks winning rider Brian Hernandez to talk about that potential decision and where he might end up should both Mystik Dan and Torpedo Anna end up in the Belmont. And I think his answer provides a little bit additional insight as to where we might see both of these horses end up during the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival.
You're watching Past the Wire TV.
Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com.
Hello, Brian, and thank you for coming on Past the Wire TV.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
No, man, I appreciate it. You're coming off a phenomenal weekend a couple of weeks back. Continued to run with a second in the Preakness. But before we get to that, I've been watching races for years, and you are like the consummate professional who just day in and day out delivers rock solid rides, Wednesday afternoon and go back to Fort Larned in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Stepping up to that big stage is just no problem for you at all, man. So how do you do that? Like, how do you just keep that level of intensity day in and day out, and just maintain it when you move on to that big stage?
I'm fortunate enough to ride for guys that don't put a whole lot of pressure on me in those bigger situations. So it's in my case, I do a lot of homework. I study a lot of films and watch a lot of races. So we try to go into even a Wednesday or the Kentucky Derby. In both cases, you try to go into those kind of races as well prepared as possible and just kind of have a game plan going into those races. And you just prepare yourself, I guess is the best way to put it. You just make sure you're well prepared and make sure and also knowing your horses. I'm fortunate enough to where most of the guys we ride for, I work a lot of horses for them in the mornings and stuff like that. So kind of know the horses before we go out there for the afternoons.
Cool. When you won the Classic on Fort Larned, okay, every rider, I guess, safe to say, wants to win the Kentucky Derby. Okay, well, you win the Classic on Fort Larned. That was a while ago. When that happened, did that, kind of light that fire even more? Say, hey, I've won one of the biggest races in the world. Now the Derby is like realistic, like, does it kind of like open that door?
Yeah, once you're fortunate enough to win a race like the Breeders' Cup Classic and show people that you're able to to handle the pressure and step up on the game's biggest stage. It helps later on. It helped later on within the next few years for people to entrust me in riding in races like the Derby and things like that. And it's just, a horse like Fort Larned, for him to come along when he did, it was a godsend because we were doing well career wise, but to jump up and get a horse that can win multiple grade ones and finish a year with a Breeders' Cup Classic like that, it opened the eyes to a lot of new clients and a lot of new people that hey, this kid can get the job done when the pressure is applied.
Now I don't remember. I was actually there that day, but I don't remember. Were you on him today at Gulfstream Park? Where okay, you did. So
Yeah.
you and he just kind of ran off without you.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, it's usually like never a good thing when that happens. But I remember watching that race from the apron towards the top of the stretch, and when he passed me, I was like, he's got no rider, but that son of a gun is full of run, man.
Yeah. He and that's what happened that day at Gulfstream. It was his first race off the layoff. He had the whole winter off, and we were going to the gate that day down the mile chute at Gulfstream. I'll never forget. I just kept telling myself, I said, man, all we have to do is leave the gate in good order. There's no way anybody's going to beat him today. And his second jump out of the gate, he just stumbled and fell to his face. And when he came up, he went right, and my momentum was kind of going left, and we got separated. And by the time I got up off the ground, I looked up, and he was about an eighth of a mile down the racetrack. I was like, oh God, this is going to be a bad day.
All right. Well, you both certainly made up for it come November that year, but I remember that and remember just thinking that
Yeah, that was
never a good thing. But this horse just looks really, really full of himself.
He was just such a naturally fast horse, which made my job so much easier. All I had to do was just stay out of his way and let him just be. He was the rare type of horse where the further he went, the faster he got.
Now, did you ever get discouraged from the time that you won the Classic until the time it took to actually win the Derby? Did you ever just think just may not happen? That Derby is just so tough to get to, let alone win. Or did you always kind of feel, I'm going to get mine?
No, you never. In this game, you can never get down on yourself because there's going to be a lot of days that you're gonna get beat up and lose. But I've been fortunate since the Classic that I've ridden the Derby 6 or 7 times now, and we've had chances. We've had chances every year going into all the prep races to ride the race. It was just a couple years the horses didn't get in. 2 years in a row we had them scratched the morning of entries and things like that. You just got to get up every day and just keep looking for that next 3-year-old or the next 2-year-old that's going to turn 3 and look for that next good horse, because if you start getting down, people notice it. You just got to show up every day and do your job and keep searching for the next good one.
Well, like I said at the beginning, you're just like the consummate pro at just showing up every day like that. Now, part of that weekend, which is, it's like winning the World Series and the Super Bowl back-to-back days. You win the Oaks on that really nice filly, Torpedo Anna. Come back, win the Derby. You got that Breeders' Cup Classic, on the resume. Let me ask you this question: in reflecting back on those 3 races, when you were on each one of those horses, which race did you know you had won first?
Probably the Oaks.
Really?
Friday in the Oaks, yeah, because that filly, we were going around the turn, and she had her ears up, and she was just cruising so nicely. And when we were able to get to just inside the quarter pole under her own terms, I was like, man, she's about to win the Oaks for fun. And it was just she gave me every indication that there was no way anybody was going to beat her on Friday. And it was just she showed how dominant she was, and just the whole way around her, she was by far the best horse, and she was just dominated the rest of them.
Well, it's interesting because that leads to this. Like Kenny said, and Kenny was on the show a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, I told everybody that would listen, and he did. He was bringing a grizzly bear, to the Oaks. I don't think I can make weight, but I might have been able to get her in contention at 200 pounds. Probably not, but she was a beast. Mystik Dan, that was a little different. That took a lot more of your experience, skill, and determination to get that race won. And everybody's talking about, or was talking about, what happened between Sierra Leone and Forever Young nearing the wire. You probably, I'm guessing, have no idea that that's happening when you're on the rail trying to win the race. But before that, oh, we lost you there for a second.
Oh, sorry, you froze up there.
No problem. Technology's great when it works,
Yeah.
There was a point in that race where you went inside Joel Rosario's horse, and things did get a little tight, Can you talk us through that incident, which kind of got overshadowed by the Sierra Leone incident at the wire? But that was some race riding there.
Yeah, it was one of those deals where we were shooting through a tight gap, and Joel's horse was getting tired, and he opened up the fence just a bit. But then when I shot through there, it was just race riding. He tried to kind of close the gap on us again, but by then it was too late. Once I had my horse's head in there, there was no way they were going to get us back out of that spot. So it was just it was just trusting my horse and knowing that, hey, when I'm going to point him to a gap like that, he was going to shoot through.
Right.
And
now go ahead.
That's what made the difference between winning or running third, because I knew going into the race that those horses like Sierra Leone, they were going to be deep closers, and I was just needing to get the jump on them when we straightened for home, because if not, we didn't have as big of a kick as they did. We had more of a short, quick spurt, and that's what knowing Mystik Dan, I knew if we got that split, kind of.
Right, and you did. You got that little spurt away and opened up, and it was just enough to kind of hold on. We lost you here for a minute. Oh. Yeah, there you are. You got that spurt and opened up just enough to be able to hold on. How aware were you of what was going on outside of you and how fast those horses were coming at the end? Because there was a little distance. I mean, Forever Young and Sierra Leone were close together, but you were a little bit, a couple of paths inside of them. But how aware can you be in that situation as to what's going on? And
I knew there were horses closing in on us, but then at the same time, I was just more worried about just trying to get to the wire first. At the eighth pole, I still thought I was going to be like 2 in front, and we were just trying to get to the wire, because most of the time in the Kentucky Derby, you don't see horses inside the eighth pole close that hard like those two guys did.
Right.
So when we hit the wire, I was just like, oh man, did I just get beat in the Derby? Because those two horses, they closed so fast.
We lost you here for a minute.
And just when we stood up at the wire, we just didn't know if we had won it yet or not. And to see his number get hung up like it did, it was very special.
What's that like? That gallop out, not really being sure. You had to know. You knew you were in it for sure.
Yeah, you're on the gallop out, and you don't know if you won or lost, and it's two totally different feelings, because you're going to be overcome with joy if you win it, but then to be second and come that close, that's got to be hard to put into words, to know how hard that horse ran to be second. That's his only chance of ever winning the Kentucky Derby. So you feel
Right.
bad for those connections, but at the same time, you're awfully proud of your horse to be able to do what he did on Saturday.
Yeah, no, I could see now. What's your take on his Preakness run coming out of the Derby? What
I thought he ran his race. He ran a big second. There's a reason Wayne Lucas has won that race 7 times, and he's
Right.
all-time greatest. He knows how to get those 3-year-olds to the prime time and get them to the race on the right day. And we just ran into Preakness. We ran into a really good horse in Lucas's horse. He came out of the Pat Day Mile, and he ran ran him back in the Preakness, and we just couldn't run him down. We turned for home, and when I turned for home, I was like, all right, we're gonna run right past him, and he never backed down to us. Our horse ran a winning race. He wasn't good enough on Preakness Day.
Now, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I got to bring it up because it's out there. Some years back, and it was for different connections, so it's not the same scenario. But Calvin Borel win the Derby on Mind That Bird, and then had to make that choice: am I going to ride the filly in the Preakness, or ride the Derby winner? You might have that choice to make in the Belmont Stakes. I know Kenny's kind of, we've checked in with him up there at Saratoga. He has not ruled out. You may know more than I do, but doesn't look like he's ruled out running the Grizzly Bear in the Belmont Stakes, which would leave you with one hell of a decision, no?
No, I think that's the case. Is they're not going to run against each other.
Okay.
If Mystik Dan doesn't go in the Belmont, then Torpedo Anna might, but they're not going to run against each other. So it's I'm fortunate in that case.
Okay, all right. If she does go and he doesn't, is she that much of a grizzly bear that you think she'd have a hell of a shot against the Colts?
I mean, she's been dominant in everything we've asked of her so far. So that's a big step to run against the boys going 1.25 miles. But if Kenny feels she's doing well and doing everything right, and he knows his filly, you'd have to take a chance with her and think she's got a big chance in there if she does run.
So, if you're able to win that race with either one of those horses, I mean, that puts your resume in really elite status. You become an Oaks winner, a Derby winner, a Belmont winner, Breeders' Cup Classic winner. So, I mean, what would that mean to you individually? Just career-wise, where do you think that puts you?
No, I mean, it definitely boosts your career, but then in the same aspect, just to be able to win the classics like that, you want to win those classic races, those races that people always talk about, the Triple Crowns and just those Grade 1 classics. So to be able to, it would be extra special with the Belmont being up at Saratoga this year. So if you get to go to Saratoga and win a race like the Belmont, that's something that people are going to talk about the rest of your life and the rest of horse racing history. It's a huge milestone, and it would mean a lot. So that's kind of the nice thing about it. We're going into that weekend looking like we have some really good chances, and we're excited about it.
Let me ask you this, and we'll close out with this. I'll let you go, Brian. From a fan, a bettor, a student of the game aspect. Hello, it's on TV. We don't really understand or have the grasp that a horseman or a rider does about the change in distance and the change in venue for the Belmont Stakes. But it's 1.25 miles, not 1.5 miles, and it's being run at Saratoga as opposed to Belmont. Does that, and if so, how much and in what way, does that change the dynamic of the race or anything at all? Like, how does that affect you as a rider? And, what's the horseman's perspective of that?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you go from 1.5 miles, which these horses, that's the only time they'd ever run 1.5 miles anyway. And then they're cutting back to the 1.25 miles this year. It seems like it's going to be, it's still going to be a tough race, but it's going to change the dynamics of it. You might have a horse that with a little more speed that's going to try the Belmont now rather than some horses they'd never even tried because it was 1.5 miles. But we still have to go through all the draw process and see who's actually going to be in the race before we can figure out exactly how we think it's going to shape up.
And when are you heading up?
I think we're going to go up. My wife and I are going to go up on the Thursday night, I believe.
Okay. Brian, I'll leave you with that. Thank you for coming on. I assume that's your biggest fan and biggest cheerleader right there with us.
Yeah, this is Annabelle, my youngest daughter.
Okay. Hi, Annabelle. Thank you for joining us. We'll all be rooting for your daddy up at Saratoga.
So thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Brian.
Thank
Be
you.
well. Good luck. Have a safe trip.
Thanks.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.
Zandon's poetry in motion. Big horse, but light on his feet. And he's always showed up and been consistent and been right there with some of the top horses in training. In the Bluegrass Stakes, he showed his determination and his raw ability.
It's over. Zandon wins the Toyota Bluegrass.
I feel breeders will be really blown away by what a striking, outstanding looking horse he is.
Nobody does it better.